Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to 2A News Now. And I really do appreciate you taking your time tuning into today's video. Every time there's some type of a mass shooting, there's always a call from the Democrats to ban certain weapons. And what they just don't understand, if they do ban those weapons, the people that already have them get to keep them. And even if the law that was passed, that people had to turn in those particular firearms, how many people do you actually think are going to turn them in? And let's say for some reason, everybody turned those firearms in. It doesn't mean shootings are going to stop. They'll just choose another weapon. And then it's a vicious cycle where the Democrats would want to ban that particular weapon. And then, of course, get to their ultimate goal, to banning just about all weapons that are out there. We know that good guys with guns saves lives. But of course the Democrats don't believe that, except for their security that has guns protecting their lives. But there's actually government data that shows that good guys with guns save lives. But the thing is, though, the government is hiding it from us. Remember, they don't care about our rights. They just simply want to ban guns. But those gun-hating Democrat politicians know that good guys with guns save lives. They're just not going to tell you about it because it doesn't fall into their agenda. And like I said, the federal government has the numbers to back up the claim that good guys with guns saves lives. But the federal government is hiding it from us. For instance, let's talk about the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. They're supposed to be a non-political organization, but they sure as hell are. The Biden administration has had the CDC to suppress the data proving that armed citizens help prevent crime. And how did they suppress this data? By completely removing it from their website. And what did they remove? The estimates of defensive gun uses. Since 2013, the CDC, the National Academy of Sciences report, showing people that use guns to stop crime, anywhere between in a year, 64,000 times to 3 million times a year. And the reason the CDC took this information down off their website, because of a gun-hating piece of crap named Mark Bryant. This guy is a gun control activist and the founder of Gun Violence Archive. And he told the CDC they should remove that information regarding defensive gun use estimates because he called it misinformation. And he said the gun rights folks use it to try to stop gun control legislation. And soon after, he asked the CDC to remove these numbers from their website. Well, son of a bitch, they did. And now there's no list at all. The CDC had these numbers, and so much they believe that they're true, they put them on their website. And it took one anti-gun piece of shit to get them to remove it from their website. And that just shows you how political they are. Because who's in charge now? The Biden-Harris administration. If they believed the numbers were true, they should have left them up. But it's just not the CDC that's involved in something like this. But so are our friends at the FBI. The FBI wanted to compile a list of active shootings. And they hired researchers at Texas State University. And how did the university come up with their information? They used Google searches to find news stories about these particular incidents. And now we find out the FBI either missed or misidentified many cases of civilians using guns to stop attacks. The FBI report showed that armed citizens stopped 14 of the 350 active shooter cases in 10 years from 2014 to 2023. But heck, wouldn't you know it? Another group did their own research, and they are the Crime Prevention Research Center. And their research numbers are totally different from the FBI's. Of course they are. Between 2014 and 2023, they said there was 515 active shooter incidents, and armed citizens stopped 180 of them. And those people saved a lot of lives and a lot of injuries. And the Crime Prevention Research Center numbers even excluded 27 cases with a citizen that was armed with a gun stopped the shooter before they could fire even one shot. The Crime Prevention Research Center estimates that law-abiding citizens with guns have stopped over 35% of active shootings, and that is over the last decade, and nearly 40% in the last 5 years. That is 4 times higher than what the FBI numbers were. Go figure. But also you have to remember, try to pick their targets knowing that they're gun-free zones. So they're less likely to be met with a law-abiding citizen with a gun. But also in the case of the recent mass shooting in Georgia, the shooter was met with a good guy with a gun, a resource officer. But these Democrat politicians are constantly trying to make laws or already have made laws that make sure that there's no good guys with guns to stop these shootings. And now that there's more facts out, the school shooting in Georgia should have never happened. That kid was investigated a year before because of making online threats, and nothing was done about it. And now the father has been arrested and is facing murder charges and others, just like his son is, because he enabled his son to be able to have access to those guns. And I don't know what security like is in school in Georgia, but in Florida, where I lived most of my life, after a mass shooting, the governor put together a task force to see what they could do about these mass shootings in schools. One of the things they came up with that I don't agree with is red flag laws, because the people don't get due process. But what law they did pass, that every public school in Florida has to have at least one armed resource officer. And depending on how many kids are in the school, it can be 2, 3, or more. And some school districts even came up with their own police force for schools. And of course that means hiring more officers. And how they had to pay for it was by raising taxes. Now with the economy that we're in, nobody likes their taxes to be raised. But in this case, to protect our children and grandchildren, I think that's a small price to pay. Unfortunately, it's the world we live in, and it's not the guns that are the problem. Most of the time, people that commit mass shootings have some type of a mental problem, and it's either not been addressed at all, or they've been offered little help. And the other thing is, if somebody does have a problem, they can't have access to firearms, especially from their parents or others that live in that household. For about 10 years, I lived with my older brother, who's no longer with us now, and he had a lot of mental problems. And of course I'm a firearms collector, but I made sure the firearms were locked up, so he had no chance of getting a hold of them. And never once did he, because I did my job. And if the parents who have children or other people in their household that have some type of mental problems, and they get a hold of their firearms and do what this kid did in Georgia, they need to be charged as well, like they did. So that was a lot of information that I gave you guys. So at first I'd like to know in the comments section down below what you think of the CDC and the FBI covering up these numbers to further agenda of the Biden-Harris administration. And also, what are your thoughts on what should be done in these schools? How should they be protected? Also, I forgot to mention, they say that the kid brought the AR-15 to school broken down in his backpack. Then you go to thinking, what about metal detectors? Some of the schools in Florida will only allow see-through backpacks. Let me know your thoughts. We need to make sure that our children and our grandchildren that are going to schools are protected as much as possible. I know people, including myself, that would volunteer and take courses and use my own firearm to protect these children. I know it's kind of corny to say, but the children are our future. As always, I appreciate everybody's support with the channel. You guys always crushing it by liking, sharing, and subscribing and hitting those post notifications. And I really do appreciate it. And I invite you to come back and watch my next video.